to the cloud. Hello. Okay, it is 12. Oh, shit, it's 12:01, and I was going to start on time. Well, I was really here 5 minutes ahead of time. Okay, guys. So this is the Coach's Kickstart call, and it is the 19th of December. We are in full holiday swing here, and my lovely bride is going to be jumping on a plane soon, so that's why she's not here. What I'm gonna do real quick, guys, is it's funny. There's so many things that you don't really know that go on behind the scenes with this Zoom thing that I like to be oblivious to. And now I'm just seeing it all. So, okay. So here we are. And what today is essentially going to be, it's going to be a, hey, what do you need from me kind of day? And what that means is I'm going to take questions. I'm going to, whatever's spinning around in your head for you is what we can really talk about. And I got a couple questions that people sent me. There was a couple questions on the Facebook page. But what I like to do is the people that are, hey, live right here jumping into the call, those are the ones that I like to kind of make sure that I, take care of the people that are on the call first before I jump into some of the questions that I got. So a lot of you guys are on mute. What you would need to do to talk is to just unmute yourself, and then we can have a fun conversation. And I think that I got so far everybody that has jumped in, but it's weird. Like I'm only seeing a couple pictures. Hey, Eric, I can see you too. Okay, so questions, thoughts, anything popping up right off the bat for anybody that you want to have a little bit of a discussion about, or any, whatever questions even people put in the Facebook group. If you're on the call, I would love it for you to ask those questions, so then I don't have to go back and check that out.
I'm happy to ask you my question.
Yes, Erica. Go ahead. So just a heads up, Erica, I was just going to say, I hope the car's not moving because you're getting out.
No. I brought you guys to a waterfall. See that?
Nice.
Where I live is very famous for waterfalls. So
Excellent.
I brought you here. There you go. It looks even bigger. Okay. So, and now I have to plug the phone back in. So my question is that I sent you in the Facebook group was about how to deal, like, I have this team of 5 and they're like, great, you can come in and coach us through mapping out our internal processes of how we like take a grant and how its whole like workflow, because we really need to do a better job with that.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. And they want everybody, all brains on deck, so they don't want to have them, they don't want one of them to facilitate it. Okay, so I'm kind of curious, what are you listening for? Or what are you doing in that session that has it be a deeper coaching session, as opposed to just facilitating, the thing that they say that they want to do? I mean, I can get in the beginning, setting it up, obviously, with some questions of like, what differences is going to make, all the kind of coaching agreement stuff, like, why is this important? And, really is, I could see that wouldn't freak them out. They'd be like, okay, that makes sense. She's asking those questions. But then as we're in the process, that's my question of like, what am I listening for to know, like, yeah, I'm going to make a choice as the coach in the room to kind of hold the spotlight here, which might interrupt the sort of post-it note process or whatever.
Okay, and Erica, this is a great question, and I think that what this is going to be about is a couple of things. I have a question to your question. Is this a one-time thing, or is this something you're going to be doing for a while?
This particular session is a one-time thing. Oh, no. I've been working with this team for a couple, several other sessions, and I have other sessions with them to do like the coaching agreement, team alliance kind of stuff. We're going to do that before we do this. And then if they like how I facilitate them through the harder conversations, then they'll probably keep hiring me to do that. So this really is a model to be sharing with them of like hey, this is why pay me to help you facilitate this conversation and get the kind of results you want.
Okay, great. So I think here the big thing is acknowledging the fact that when you start this whole thing out, is that they're the experts.
Yeah.
They're the experts in the room, and what you're going to do is you're going to pull on their brain power. So everybody has a role, and in this case, right, your role is to be the facilitator to pull out the brilliance from them. So I start things out a lot of times with, hey, I'm gonna ask some questions that you're gonna be like, why the hell are you asking that question? I'm gonna ask questions that might confuse you. I'm gonna ask questions that might press your buttons a little bit. I'm going to ask you questions that are going to essentially help you think in different ways. I'm going to help you be in a spot where your normal way of thinking, because everybody has their roles. And even what you said, I think that you said that did you say there's 5 people in here?
Yeah, including the CEO. And
so they have their roles. Right? They already have the way of they work together. What I like to tell them in the beginning is, I'm going to kind of disrupt that. I'm going to shake up your regular way of working together. Sometimes, Joe, you talk a lot. Sometimes, Sally, you just sit back and do nothing. What I'm here for today is I want to know, what are the roles that you guys have taken on so far? Because then I'm going to mix that up a little bit. So I like to throw that in, Erica, right in the beginning, and basically say, okay, great. This is the way you're doing things. I love it. And it got you here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to shake things up, and we're going to bring you here. So when you start to have some of these conversations about mapping things out, Erica, you're one of the most curious people I know. My recommendation for you, since I do know you so well, is trust your gut and trust your instincts every freaking time. If you see something that's happening in this dynamics that's going on, where, somebody all of a sudden gets quiet, or somebody gets a little bit pissed, or somebody's, just something happens, call it out. And you don't have to call it out in a way like, hey, Joe, what's up with the crossing your arms crap? When, Sue just said something. It's about, hey, listen, something just happened. What was that? Like, what just happened? Because what you want to do is you want to make sure that they know that you're going to call out the stuff that's in the room. So your job right there, and I tell people this straight up, is, listen, my job is to point out your blind spots. And sometimes it's going to be like getting hit in the head with a 2x4, and sometimes it might be a little tap on your shoulder. But the big part about this is kind of, and you totally get this with working with Jen and I so much, is disrupting the status quo of what they do. Because they could do what they do, and they're doing what they're doing. You're the one that's going to change it. And you can even ask them. So if something was different, right? If something was different in the dynamics of this whole meeting, or, things are happening, what do you guys want to be different? You could do that on the Post-it note exercise. You could do it as a flip chart thing. Even if there's, have a group of 3 and a group of 2, that's cool. Have them come up with those things, and then you use them, and then you keep tying things back to it. And also what I would do too is I would make sure that, like, I love to know that when you're walking out of the room, like, what does success look like?
Yep.
I want to know that. And because then I know in the back of my head, like, okay, great, there's something here. There's something that I want to get to. I'm not 100% sure how we're going to get there. And I tell them that, listen, I don't know how we're going to get here, but we're going to be on our way to getting there.
Yep. Yeah, I think you're really emphasizing there's a lot of coaching just in how you set it up, the conversation. And I think I'm hearing that in the room, just basically acknowledging what's happening in a non-personal way, but just acknowledging, like, the listening for, like, something just shifted in how we're having this conversation. Like, what was that? Or something but keeping it referencing, like, is this accurate? Is this a helpful marker to think of it as, like, I'm coaching, like, the network of interactions between the people? Like, that's my client.
I like that. And it's almost like, if you think about it, Erica, right? It's like you're coaching the system.
Yeah, coaching the system. So the system is my client. And so do you redirect people? So if people are like, well, Bob just said something and it shut Susie down, do you say, how do you redirect that so that it's about the system?
I ask what just happened. I don't sit there and go, yo, Bob, you just triggered her. Or,
Right.
you know what, I got to
Well, if the client says that, if they say, oh, well, what just happened is Bob just shut Susie down or whatever, if they go into the personal, what are those beautiful words you use to like focus them on the system, right? Because that's part of the lesson of what they're learning.
We let Jen do the beautiful words. I normally just say, so what the hell just happened there?
Oh, that's right. Okay. I have to get Jen.
So sometimes what would happen then is like, I would ask, all right, so what was the story that you just created when that just happened? Right? So helping people understand, right, what just happened.
So someone just typed into a question I think that really is getting at the heart of this, of like, we're trying to coach a system and we're trying to have them think about a system, yet they're going to say, like they said, someone named David said, well, I would acknowledge that somebody cut somebody off. So how do you do that in a way that keeps the focus oriented towards the system, and yet the system is comprised of these individuals who are doing their behaviors?
So the thing is that I noticed that, right? And you're going to notice that, but they might not. So I want to ask them first what happened.
Okay.
Right? So what just happened? Energy shifted, something changed, what just happened? And 9 out of 10 times, Erica, they're going to know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't, and if they turn it back to you and say, you know, okay, what just happened? Then I say, hey, listen, you know, based on the last statement that was made, yeah, Susie got shut down. And not then going down a complete rabbit hole with Susie, but acknowledging the fact that there's that elephant in the room now that probably everybody's noticed because this is their dynamics, right? He probably does that all the time. And, you know, she probably shuts down all the time. And this is their dynamics. So how do we take that step back and again, focus on the system?
I have a comment. Just thinking of all this, I'm wondering, I'm sorry?
Yeah, go.
Oh, please. Yeah. I'm wondering if you might say, acknowledge it and say, so in what way did that behavior disrupt or support our system that we agreed to in the beginning?
Love it.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing about this, guys, right? You guys are coaches. You ask great questions. And that's the thing. Whatever you feel like is the right question at that point is the right question. And then if you sit there and ask it and you're like, well, that was pretty shitty, ask a different one. That's okay. Ask another question. And what's going to happen is, like I said, this is what you're there to help them see things that they can't see. You're there to basically say, hey, all right, let's mix things up a little bit. I don't know who's making that noise at me. So what it is you're in there to disrupt their normal patterns of thinking and to shake things up.
Karen?
Yes. Hi, Claire.
Hey, I just want to piggyback on what you guys have been saying and ask you, have you had a situation where the person is just, you know, total level 1 and 2, meaning he just doesn't want any part of it and has no introspection or interest? How do you deal with a problem child when you have a group of people who are trying to change the dynamics and you have one person who's just resisting it all?
Okay, so this is a great question, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put what you just said, Claire, in non 1 and 2 terms, because there's a lot of people on this call that don't have a background there. So basically, what Claire is asking, I just want to make sure I'm on point here, is that when you have somebody that's either playing the victim, somebody that's acting out, somebody that's pissed off, somebody that's just like your own pain in the ass in the room, what is it that you really do, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so what I will do a lot of times is before I even start some of my, some of the workshops that we're in, I'm kind of paying attention, right? I'm paying attention to the people in the room. I'm paying attention to the dynamics that are going on. I kid around with Jen a lot, and I'm just like, hey, I'm a trained observer. I'm just watching stuff. I'm not necessarily saying a lot in the beginning. She's working the room. She's talking to people, and I'm doing a lot of the watching. And what I do a lot of times is I ask people, okay, who wants to be here, right? Who doesn't want to be here? And who's just basically, just kind of hanging for the day. And I'll ask them to tell me the truth. And the thing is that the people that don't necessarily want to be there, what I want to find out from them is, I know that you don't want to be here, but what do you want to get out of today? So I try to create that relationship with them and kind of to get on the same page as them. And then I actually, sometimes what I might do is I might make that, depending on what it is, I might make that person my ally. So how do I make that so I get that person, and the person sitting there going, oh yeah, okay, you get me. So I'll give you an example on this. There was this organization that a company that I used to work for was doing a lot of work with. And they had a bunch of former military people that they were working with. And it was interesting. There was this 4-star general that was like, he's a salty old guy. And I wasn't involved in the training aspect of it, but I was involved in the work, the individual work after the fact. And the thing was that everybody kept saying, this guy is, he's uncoachable. You can't coach him. Nobody can coach him, blah, 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 blah. And I said, I'm like, I'll give it a shot. I'll try. I'll have a conversation with him. And the thing that happened is we got on the phone, and I said to him, I said, listen, I got to tell you, I understand that you're a pretty tough nut to crack. And I understand that this is warm and fuzzy to you. And I understand that you're saying, I'm calling bullshit on a lot of this. I get it. I absolutely 100% get it. And I said, been where you were, the law enforcement thing, the military thing. So immediately what happened was there was a bond that was starting to form with that. And I had a little bit of a conversation with him about some of the things, thanked him for his service, some of the things that he's actually had been through. And not more than 5 minutes talking to this guy, he was just like, you effing get me. I told Jen I wouldn't say the F word on here. You get me. So the thing that happened there, Claire, was there was resistance. And what happens is, for me, the biggest thing when there's resistance, how do I want to form a connection? And so if I can form the connection through that, and you want to make sure that I'm not going at him, boom, 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 like in a conflict kind of way, but I'm taking a step back, and how do I extend a weird olive branch to get him on my team? Does that make sense?
Great, Karen. In this particular case, you were able to do that one-on-one. It was not in a group format. Is that right?
Correct. Now, I have done things like this. And I'll be honest, guys, I've done things in group formats that I've called people out. I've told people they're a pain in the ass. I've told people that I was sick of their shit. There's a lot of things that I have done. And I'll be honest, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I'll remember this one time, then this woman, every time I said something, she was like, I know this. And then at one point, I'm just like, stop. I'm effing sick of you already. Will you just shut up? Not one of my finer moments. However, the thing that the backside of that, though, was then after that happened was getting the debrief in the room with what happened. So making that kind of a learning thing. And then after that happened, essentially, okay, so what was the thing that snapped me? What was the thing that snapped her? And then having a conversation around it. So every single thing that happens, you can make some kind of, it could be a teachable moment. And like I said, there's times when I've been a dick, and it's just like, okay, great. What do I want to do to recover from that? And how do I make it a teachable moment? And what do we want to do with that information, if that makes sense? But now it's funny. I very, very like that was years ago. I very, very rarely get triggered anymore. I'm just like, it's like, all right, I get it. And I'll just, anytime that I want to yell at somebody in my head, I ask a question. That's my trigger to, okay, if I want to tell this person what, something about, that they're pissing me off right now, I ask a question. So that's where I go from the reaction mode to the response mode, being able to hit the pause button and just take a breath and then ask them a question. Anything else on that, Claire?
That was great. Thank you. I wish I could put my camera on and you could have seen me laugh at your story. It was awesome. Thank you.
I gotta tell you, some of my stories are kind of, yeah, a little bit more law enforcement than coaching. All right. Anybody else? Thoughts, questions that are popping up for right now before I jump into any of the things that I have written down here right now? I know that I threw in, Dave says, all right, so David, you're in a noisy place. All right, well, hey, just for the record, Dave, hopefully I will see you at a run one of these days. Laura, yes, I can see your message. I'm not sure why you're not seeing a video, but yeah, weird. And I don't know. I don't know what it is, guys, because I made everybody presenters, and some people's cameras are working and some people's aren't. So I don't know if I needed to do something else or not. But yeah, sorry about that if you're not on camera and you want to be. And some people are like, I'm just choosing not to be seen. Okay. And then other people like Joey and Ryan, we just see her ceiling. Okay. Questions. But yeah, this could be about freaking out about the holidays, any kind of coaching, things that you might need help with, with your clients, like a scenario or something that might actually.
Hey, Karen, can you hear me?
I can.
Yay.
Hey, Lori.
So, it's kind of the opposite of seen but not heard. So I have a client. It's a small business professional service firm, and the engagement is working with both the owner and the successor. And the successor is magnificent as a business person and in every way. The owner, not so much. And so we're just coming to the end of a full year engagement, and they've made a lot of progress. And yet, like today, literally at 2:00 Pacific time, we have a session that may or may not be the final. And I'm kind of wrestling with, as a coach, how do I decide whether this is an engagement that I don't like to use the S word, should, but should I even continue? Because I feel like again, a lot of progress, but there's still massive resistance to him changing in any way.
What's the resistance? Hey, I just lost you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Oh, and there's your camera.
Hey, woohoo! It shut down and then just popped back up again. Very strange. So I think part of it is that she was the one that she's been with him for 5 years, and so she was the one that really was the catalyst for me being engaged.
Okay.
It's kind of like she was tired of, you like the shit word, so do I. She was tired of the same old shit, and it's like, if I'm going to be the successor, she just didn't see it happening if things didn't change. So I feel like he went along with it, which is not the same as, yeah, I'm tired of the same shit too. So ultimately, I think he wants to keep her happy, and yet not at the expense of him changing.
So what I'm thinking about is that if you were to walk out the door today with them and and both of them could align on what success means. What is success? Like what ideally would success mean?
So, it's kind of interesting because I'm just finishing up the conversational intelligence program, and there's a exercise in there called double clicking, and I used that back in June.
Okay.
And we did a face-to-face and had them both individually write how do they define success relative to the business. And so maybe that's an idea, is to pull that back out and revisit it.
Yep. That's not a bad idea. You know how Jen talks about the looping process? So, this is about, okay, so here's where we were. These were the things that we started talking about. And you could do this, in a coaching conversation. You just can do this in a group. You can tie this back at any point. But, hey, this is where we were. This is where we are. And if we were to kind of think about what we set up in the beginning, how do you feel about where we are right now? If we were to measure our success based on that, how's that going? And to then just get really curious around that. But with these, with the one person being magnificent, the other people kind of being a little bit just like, okay, I'll be compliant kind of.
Mm-hmm.
If we can get that, I would just ask the guy straight up. So
that's kind of what was coming up for me as you were talking about the calling out the elephant in the room, because he's the elephant.
Totally. And I'll tell you guys a quick elephant story. And some of you guys have heard this story before, but your job as a coach is to call the elephant out in the room. Now, the way that you call that out has to fit your personality. And I'm not saying that you're going to call elephants out the way I call elephants out. So Jen and I were doing a program, and we were working with a team, a big sales team. And the guy who was the VP, at one point he just left, and he wasn't coming back. And I'm like, I'm saying to Jen, I'm like, where the hell is he? He's way too long. He's probably not peeing this long. And then somebody else comes up to me that was in the class, and she just says, what's up with him being gone? And I'm like, I don't know. I gotta go find him. So I leave the room while they're doing another exercise to go find this guy. So I see him in a small office with two other people. And I stood by the door, put my hands on my hips, and I just went, what are you doing? And I might have, just said that a little bit forceful. And he's just like, well, they needed my help. I said, do you realize you have just become the elephant in the living room? I said, you need to come back with me. We need to get back in that room, and we need to do a little bit of damage control. I said, and I got to tell you, I'm going to use this whole thing as an example. And this guy had been working with him, and I knew him pretty well. And so I knew he was going to be okay with that. So he's just like, all right. And we walk back in. He's walking with his tail between his legs. And we walk back in the room, and I said, okay, guys, here's the elephant. I said, what are we going to do about it right now? And essentially what we did was we used that elephant as the catalyst for a great conversation for this team to actually bond and to actually get them a little bit closer. And what the team realized then was that this guy has a horrible, horrible ability to say no. So he's there. His text message comes in from these two other people that he needs help, that they need help, and he left. So what we did was we started to have a conversation about, how he can actually say no. But the thing is if the elephant's there for a reason, and you gotta say something. You gotta do something. Because if you don't, it's almost like you're feeding the damn thing. So it's basically then saying, how do we make sure that we address it, but we don't necessarily, spend the whole afternoon on it, but we got to address it and we got to talk about it. or it's going to kind of, that lingering goofy energy is going to kind of stay there.
And I think that's what it is like we've had a few great sessions, and then come back a month later and he's right back. And a lot of it is just, there may be some ADD there going on with him that makes it tough. But I don't know. This is helpful though, because I think part of it is just me recognizing, and I know she sees it, that he is the elephant. So I think I'll try the looping back on success, and I just got to put my big girl Spanx on and be ready to say it kindly, because I think that's part of it too, is they have a great rapport in terms of he's not really there like, I'm the boss, it's my firm, but he wants her to really take on and be responsible for just about everything, so he can go off and be, I don't know, Willy Wonka or something. And it's kind of like, okay, this isn't working. It's not working for her anyway. So anyways, thank you.
You're welcome. And what I would also do with that too, Lori, is that I would focus on the, what does he need? Not what does she need, but what does their relationship need to be successful?
Ooh, that's good.
Thank you.
I like it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Cool. What else? I could see you now, Barb. All right. Any other questions? So here's a question from my friend David. How have people gotten their first and second clients? So how about somebody throw out how they got their first client or how they got their second client? Go ahead, Lori. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, so I was in the investment industry and had been in it for like 20 years. So I don't know, what your background is, but I was very intentional about thinking about because I had left the business, but I had only been gone like not even a year. So I was very intentional about going back to LinkedIn and just thinking about my kind of natural network, and got busy connecting one-on-one with people to get that. So my first paying client, who paid in full, she was somebody that I knew from my former work. And so she wasn't like a good friend. She was more of an acquaintance. But anyway, so just start with your natural network and think about them as kind of low-hanging fruit. And my second clients came from the same. So I started getting referrals as I went back and reconnected with some of the small businesses that they used to be my client. So I even went back to former clients and started getting referrals.
Excellent. Thanks, Lori. So I'll just tell you, somebody else want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll say something. My instructor, who taught me just go out and coach anybody, right? So I didn't put much thought into who. I just, I'm a natural networker. So I just went out and started networking. And my first client came when I was in the middle of the program, who paid in full. And then it was over time that I started to develop my area of focus in my area and my niche area. So it was through networking, and similar to you, Lori, people who I already knew that seemed to be low-hanging fruit.
Cool. Thank you, Barb. That's one thing too. It's funny, like the people that had me for an instructor, they will know that the first weekend that they saw me, I would throw out a challenge: go get paying clients. Like, do it now. And I would basically, hey, this is a challenge for you guys, and I want to know how that's turned out when I see you, in 2 or 3 months. And and for me, I had gotten my first client, who is my dear friend, Joanne Ryan, who's been on the phone and who has taken every program Jen and I do and now is waving at us. But she's my best friend in the world. And I started coaching her I finished a weekend of coach training and Joanne was my first client. And it's interesting because some people ask, how could you coach your friend? And the part of that was when we were coaching. And when we were playing golf, we were playing golf. And it's being able to make sure that you have those clear lines of how this is actually going to work. And it worked for years and years and years. It worked for you too, Ryan, right? I'll let her unmute herself.
Totally. Yeah, it was awesome.
So the thing here with that was that it worked. We figured out how to make that work. But another thing that I wound up doing was just like, Barbara said, and just like Lori said, I went back to the low-hanging fruit. And for me, that low-hanging fruit was women cops. So the women cops, they liked the fact that I brought the street creds of being a police chief to the table. So I helped them with a lot of leadership things. So that was my low-hanging fruit. So the big thing there, Dave, is figuring out what's your low-hanging fruit and then go after that now. And I'll tell you, and I've said this again and again and again, some people are like, oh shit, I need to find my niche. Let your niche find you, right? Let your niche find you and go coach everybody on every single thing until you figure out what you like and what you don't like. Because that's the way that you're going to get I've coached people I've coached relationships. I've coached people on coming out. I've coached corporate. I've coached kids. I've coached boatloads of people, and you find out what you like and you find out what you don't like. And then your niche will find you. And let it. Don't try to force it. Just be like, oh, it's kind of like, pretend that you're on Amazon, add to cart. I'll try that, and I'll try that, and I'll try that. And if you don't like it, return it. But the big thing is like, and Bill said, one of the big things I say all the time is F the how. Don't worry about how you're going to make something work. Just figure out what you want and who you are. And then once you get the who you are kind of down and you get the what you want kind of down, what's going to happen is the how's going to come a whole heck of a lot more natural. All right. Any more questions, thoughts?
Karen, it's Claire again. I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
When you're just starting to facilitate,
Mm-hmm.
and in my personal case, I have a gig that would allow me to take your leadership program, so I'm super excited. But I have to facilitate it and I have to do a good job before I can, get the money in the bank and take your program. Mm-hmm. What would be the best resource for me to get my feet wet?
With facilitating?
Yes.
So I'm not sure if I understand the question, like, how do you learn how to be a better facilitator, or how do you get the gig to be the facilitator?
No, I'm about to sign the gig.
Okay.
So I do a good job in terms of negotiating, but now I need to practice the hell out of it to make sure I deliver a great product facilitating.
So the thing that, okay, so what I would do is I would find different people that that you respect and that hit it out of the park with facilitation. And they don't have to be like somebody you can pick up the phone and say, hey, how do you do this? But like whether you see somebody doing some kind of presentation, what I would do is I would watch some of their presentations on YouTube or whatever if they have them, and see what it is that you really like, what it is that you really don't like. And also what I would do, Claire, is I would ask questions to people. Like I firmly believe that that if you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room. So it's about how do you make sure that you can ask people that know more than you. So people that are a little bit ahead of you in whatever it is that you want to do, ask them for their insights, ask them for some help, ask them, okay, so what did you do? How did you get better? You know, what were some of the things that actually worked for you? I think that that's the biggest part of it, but they can be acquaintances, they can be famous people, but figure out, you know, what it is that's going to be important. And truthfully too, Claire, for me, like stuff like that, I would research the hell out of facilitation skills and be like, okay, great, I like this, or okay, great, you know, don't really like this. And then how do you just go in and how do you own that room? Because that's the key. You want to go in and you want to own the room.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? And I'm excited that you're going to be jumping in on that program. That's just, it's so cool to see all the people that are on this call that were in that program. But yeah, it's fun. All right. So how about this? I got a question that somebody messaged and said, did I ever fire a client? And the answer is yes. And it's funny, I actually fired one this week. But I haven't, I've only fired a couple of clients. And the one, interestingly enough, that I fired this week was, I always said that I wasn't going, one of the big things that I wasn't going to coach anymore is I wasn't going to coach kids whose parents were paying for their coaching. That was just completely, I'm not doing it because I did it before and they were just not, they weren't bought in. It was like they were chasing them. And I was like, I'm taking the parents' money for these kids canceling, so it's just not worth my time. So I had a guy who had paid for some coaching for one of his kids. And it's interesting, I coach his other kid and the kid is amazing and I absolutely love him and he's hitting his life out of the park. This kid, not so much. So it was interesting because I have a relationship with the guy. I have a relationship with one of the kids and the other one, I'm just like, I'm firing this other kid. And essentially what it was having a conversation with him like, listen, this is not working. You're canceling. You're not doing what you said you're going to do when you said you're going to do it. You're not taking this seriously. And your dad's paying a lot of freaking money for this to be beneficial for you. So I'm not going to do this since there's zero commitment on your end. And essentially left it at that. I'm out. I'm not doing it anymore. He apologized, said, can he call me back at some point? And I just said to him, I said, listen, you figure out how it is that you want to get your life straightened out. I said, and I will be open to have a conversation with you at some point, but I'm not saying that I'm going to take you back as a client. So it's being honest with people. And another client that I had fired at one point was a client who was a pathological liar. And I just couldn't do she lied about everything, like everything all the time, the stuff she was going to do, the stuff she wasn't going to do. And I just said, listen, I said, this doesn't work because you might think that you might be trying to trick yourself, but I could see right through it. And this isn't working. I don't work with people that can't be honest with themselves. So I fired that client. Those were the two, that was the Lion one was a while back. This one was this week. And I had fired another client at one point because it came a little bit creepy. And she was almost like an obsession kind of thing. And it was like, listen, this isn't really healthy for me to coach you. Because it almost came like I don't want my clients to stay with me forever. I want them to get what they need to get. I don't want to help them and I want them to move forward. But one was a little bit creepy and freaky. As far as the refunding the fired clients, yes, I do refund fired clients' money. Good question, Lise.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And you're going to kill me probably for asking it.
Yeah.
But this might help others too. So I was in and am still in a follow-on program with Jen and Karen for corporate and leadership coaching. And I feel like I have a lot. I have a lot of skills. I have a lot of tools. I have a lot to offer the organizations and the individuals that I want to work with. I can't seem to get over this hurdle around I'm not big enough. So in going after some larger companies, here I am, sitting in my office in Freehold, New Jersey, like a solopreneur. I do have corporate experience, so I, can tap into that. But it's still like stuck in my head. Like, how do I have the coaching credibility with some of these companies that I'm trying to make initial contact with?
So one way, Barb, and so there's a couple of different things that are spinning around in my head right now. Part of me just wants to say, fucking stop it.
You're gonna kill me.
and I could say that to you because I know you and I love you. The thing here is too, sometimes in the beginning you need a little boost, right? Sometimes in the beginning it's the what can you partner with? What can you perhaps what can you do yourself? What do you think you need help with? And part of that is some of the partnering, right? So Jen and I actually partnered with a guy that had this gig. He thought it was a little bit bigger than what he can handle, and Jen and I partnered with him. There's other people that we do some work with that have actually partnered together. They're, hey, this gig is a little bit too big for me. Can I partner with you? And we just go out and we do this together. So in the beginning, I think it might be a little bit of I think that the partners, and you're a networker and you're a connector, Barb, and you love connection and you love people. And my thought on that is that use that for right now. Use what you're really good at, right? You're great at forming connections. You're great at talking to people and figuring out what's going to be the true win for you in a partnership. And I'm not saying, guys, listen, I'll be honest, guys, I'm not saying that form partnerships with people, because that could take us on a whole nother topic. And I wouldn't say to do that, like create partnerships all over the place, because there's way too many intricacies that go with that. But for a gig, try something out for a trial. Listen, let's do this project together. Let's see how it goes. But the thing about, if you keep thinking you're too small, then if that's your thought, you're not too small. But if you believe that, then what's going to happen, right? You're going to be sitting there in Freehold, New Jersey, all by yourself saying, I'm too small. Knock that shit off, right? Go big or go home, my friend. And the thing is, Barb, I know that you're working your ass off to do some of these things. And I got to tell you, that perseverance, I am 100% sure that perseverance is going to have you hitting it out of the park. And guys and gals, on that note, it is actually 12:49. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this up. And I'll be honest, I have no idea when the next Coach's Kickstart call is. But I'm sure you'll see it on Facebook or you'll get an email. But I want to say, I hope everybody has an absolutely phenomenal holiday season. And for those of you that celebrated Hanukkah, I hope you had a great Hanukkah season. But I wish you all a phenomenal holiday season, a magical new year. And Jen and I are excited to share with you guys what's going to be on the horizon for us in 2019 and for you to be a part of it. So thanks for playing. And I'm glad that I was able to figure out how to get people on camera, and that some of you already were. So thanks again, guys. Big love to you too. Bye.